Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Hello.
Hello?
We are excited to be with you guys today, and we share personal stuff, yeah? Sometimes.
Do we?
We do all the
Is
time.
not
That's kind of what
most
we're
of
about.
This thing personal?
Yeah. But I think
guess.
this is more of, we are coming up in July. We will have been married for 20 years.
20 years.
Crazy. But we've been together.
Don't start trying to figure out how old we are.
No, because when I say this too, we've been together for 24 years.
Yes.
That does make me feel a little old.
Yeah.
But when I say old, I don't mean that in a like, oh, I feel great. I feel younger than I probably did when we met. So younger in many different ways, that's for sure.
Well, I think I just feel more like who I am. Like I feel like more
comfortable in your
myself
own
than I ever
skin.
have felt.
Yeah,
If that
and
makes
I'm not looking ahead going, oh gosh, like our next 20 years of marriage are just downhill. I don't think that at all. I'm actually really excited about it and stuff. So we thought with that, and knowing that is coming up and stuff, we a lot of times people sometimes are like, well, how did you guys meet?
Yeah.
And that kind of thing, because we were very young when we met, and when we got married. We thought we would just have a little episode.
That's a good way to put it. We were really young when we got married. So
We were.
That's why we're still young.
We are still young. I'm not afraid of being middle-aged. It's fine. So we thought we would just talk.
You realize like that's in like you just said that, and it's
I'm
in a
totally
recording.
okay with that. It's more I have an
funny.
issue more when people say that phrase when they're like, oh, I was in a situation recently. Sorry if you guys are listening. It's not to like put you down or anything like that, but a situation recently where I was way over the age of most of the people in the room, and they made a joke about, oh, well, that's the kind of stuff middle-aged women listen to. And I was like, excuse me. I don't listen to that, first of all. Second of all, there is nothing wrong with middle-aged women. You can't put them down for having a certain kind of music they like because we don't like the same kind of music you like. You know, it was just one of those kind of funny things. So that all being said,
Yes.
we thought we would talk about, like how we met. And it's kind of funny because we have slightly different versions of it, of where the other person thought the other person was on things. And so I guess we didn't discuss who's going first. Are you going to, or should we just start to tell how we met and then we can jump in when you're like, actually, no, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we'll do it that way.
Let's just do it that way. I think it'd be weird to be like, okay, now it's my turn.
Yes, Maya's version.
Yeah.
Version. So I literally met Pat the first night that I was at university. In fact, I'm trying to think if I had moved in. Yes, I had moved in at that point.
To have moved in.
I had just moved into my dorm, and a friend who wasn't even going to the same university came because she knew some guy from something. I don't even remember how they knew each other. And then we...
It's funny to think that person is like the connection point
yeah,
that make
exactly.
this all...
So we went to meet him, and he was like, oh yeah, I'll take you to like go meet some of my friends tonight. Basically, we're going to a party. And so we went with him, and that's when I met one of Pat's best friends, Wes, happened to be friends with this guy. So Wes, if you're listening, hi. And they took us to a party, and Pat was there. And his roommate was there. Pat's roommate was there as well.
Yes, my roommate was there.
And so I really remember being outside of this like house, and I think there were those like cheap plastic chairs, and everyone sitting around chatting and stuff like that. At this point, I think I've lost my friend.
I honestly don't even remember like whose party it was.
I don't know whose house it was either. It was a white house, but there's a lot of houses that were like those white, like cheap, like kind of, those that students live in.
I remember
trash.
it being kind of like a orangish house outside.
That's so weird.
Not like
I think it was white.
I don't maybe it was because it was at night and there was like a glow on the house. That's why it was orange on the outside. I don't know.
Jeez. Anyways, so we were in a conversation with Pat and his roommate and his friend Wes. I think there was a couple other people there, too. And so like we were just chatting and stuff like that. And so the end of the night is done, and my friend and I are going to leave to go back to go to sleep and that kind of thing. And at the end of the night, now this is where we're going to agree to disagree. I said,
oh, Kevin, I hope you're listening.
Yeah, Kevin's listening. He's probably going to laugh through this whole thing. Yeah. What I remember is Kevin asking me for my phone number back in the day when you didn't have cell phone to just like, give each other your phone number, share your information.
Was my best friend since like 5th grade.
Okay, you don't have to point all this out.
Well, no.
Okay.
I mean, and Kevin was in our wedding. Like
it's fine.
He's amazing.
So this is back in the day when you had to like actually like on a piece of paper. Sometimes you would write down on your hand like somebody's phone number because you had to go home and put it someplace because you're gonna have to pick up a physical phone and call them.
Yep.
For those of you that don't know what that's like, and so Kevin asked for my phone number, and I think I can't remember if I actually gave it to him at that point, but then Pat was standing right there. And so Kevin walked off to go do something else. And I gave Pat my phone number as well.
That's not true.
It is true.
Nope, that's not true.
It's what I remember. And I told you so
true.
that he remembers, but I was pretty interested in Pat as well. So
you're interested in multiple people that night?
Well, maybe.
That's how it goes. Interesting.
And so
now you're already changing the story.
No, I'm not changing the story. What would you say your version of that part was? Because you are laughing at me telling me that's not true.
To be honest, I don't remember very much of that evening. But
then my version's true.
But no, that's not true. But I think the biggest thing from that story is that I was approached by you that evening to make sure that Kevin called you
because I wanted you to remember my phone number.
That was the main thing that I remember from that evening. Is I was not a part of this equation other than to make sure that Kevin called you. That was the whole thing. Okay. That's what I remember.
That's
from
your
that
version.
Evening.
Okay. So, do you see how I'm not calling you a liar? I'm telling you. Oh wow, that was your version. Are you telling me?
I'm not lying. I'm just telling the truth.
Oh, anyways. So, moving on. Kevin did
Maybe we need to have Kevin on the podcast.
Oh my gosh,
to
that would be hilarious.
Make sure that that is
so
true.
Moving on, Kevin did call me and I went, oh, do you call them dates? I don't like considering what people would call dates nowadays. I feel like and maybe it's like this in university now. I don't know. Excuse me. It's like I remember going to like eat dinner at the food court and stuff like I don't remember ever like going to a movie or anything like that with Kevin. Like I don't remember doing any of those type of things. It was more like hang out kind of thing. Yeah. Or go, I mean, we went to a lot of parties or go to a party with him or something like that. And I don't even remember how long that was. It wasn't very long, maybe a month. But Pat and I during this whole time like created like a friendship. That's all it was. It was a friendship. And so I just remember there was one night where this had all I don't even know how it officially like ended with Kevin. That had ended, and it was kind of like I was still had then been friends with all of those people. You were created like, friendships.
You created a kind of you became friend because you were spending time with Kevin at that time. You were always around like all of our friends.
Yeah. Like that was the same guy, Wes, that came. Like, I got to know him really well. There was like,
you got to know the network of all our friends.
And I really liked those friends too. Like, they were really great guys.
We were in a fraternity. So like Kevin and I were in the same fraternity. And so like, and so I think, you just became friends with all of our fraternity brothers. And like, everybody knew who Maya was. And like, and so it was just, it was just like, we just became friends through that because you started to be around more and like we would see each other. You would stop by our room from time to time and things like that. And so it was just, we just became friends through that.
Yeah. So I just remember the one evening then that basically one of Pat's good friends who then I knew as well, basically kept saying, well, now that like things are done with Kevin and stuff like that, like, are you thinking about dating and stuff? And I said, no, I'm not going to date anymore. And he was like, well, I think there's somebody that's interested in you. And like, as this
whoa. Okay, go ahead.
Hold on. And I said, well, there's someone I'm interested in which I said Pat. And he was like, oh, interesting. Like, I remember sitting on the steps talking to this person about you. But then at the same time that this is all going on, There is another, this sounds like a weird, funny movie or something. There is another guy that was kind of in your friend group, I guess. Yeah, he was in your friend group.
He's one of my friends.
That then came up to me and asked if I would like to, like, again, do something. I can't remember. Go to a meal or something, probably meet at the food court or something weird like that, like the next day. And I was like, I'm not so sure because I wasn't really interested in him. And then at this same place, like there's this girl that was pursuing you, like big time. And I was like, well, that stinks because I'm really interested in Pat, but this girl seems really interested in him and I'm not into competing and stuff like that. All that to be said, I don't even, that night ended and I was like, I'm confused. I'm not sure if Pat's interested in me or this person was talking about this other person who was approaching me. Basically, I was confused. So then, do you have any other words to add to that evening?
No, I think...
That was when it first came, and I was like, maybe Pat could be interested in me, but I'm actually confused as well. So.
No, that I remember that evening in the sense of, like, there was something interesting about you because we were friends, and I was, like, trying to figure out, like, at that point, like, could there be something more? But I also didn't want to, like, ruin a friendship with you in that moment. In that time. And so, because, I mean, again, this was probably all in a span of a month and a half.
Yeah.
That, like,
because like landed, I said, when I say I dated Kevin, it means like I said, we hung out for several weeks.
But like, I think the biggest thing this was my third year of university. And this was her first
as a freshman.
And so, and so I had, I was already on campus for 2 years. I had created a network of people and friends and all that kind of stuff. And then, this literally happens like in a month and a half where, Maya starts to show up and we get to be friends. And I'm like thinking, well, there is something about this girl that's interesting that I would kind of, enjoy maybe getting to know more. At that same time, my dating record was not very great. Like, I got set up on multiple, like, blind dates from time to time and things like that. And so I was kind of, like, over the dating thing at that point. And so...
And I didn't want something serious. I was like, I'm a freshman. I'm not getting into some...
Yeah, and so I think when Maya came in, it was more like, I'm kind of like, I don't really want to do this dating thing, but like there's something about this girl that like I really enjoy her friendship. I really enjoy spending time with her, and like, yeah, like she's just really easy to hang out with and talk to and all that kind of stuff. And so I was at that point, where this party, this evening happened, where it was kind of like, okay, I'm hearing things from a couple different people that there might be some interest from her in me, and more than just a friend and that kind of thing. But then at the same time, yes, that same night there was a girl at the party that was heavily interested in me.
She was, yes. That's a good way to
and
it.
I was not really interested in her at all. And so it just created this awkward situation. But I don't remember anything ever happening that night.
No.
Then.
So what happened then is then there was, after that incident.
Then there was lots of chatter.
Then there was like all of our like these guys kept being like, oh, like do you like Pat? Does Pat like you? It was just so hilarious when I think about it. Like,
it was funny.
You could tell how young we were with how that was going on. And so people were basically trying to set us up without the two of us knowing they were trying to do it, but they weren't very discreet about it, basically.
That's a great point.
And so then it came to around Halloween time, and there was some fraternity thing with a Halloween thing, but it was like a more formal thing where you like brought a date with you. It wasn't
it's just like a formal party.
Yeah,
basically.
but the idea was like you don't.
Instead
it's
of just
not
like,
just open to everybody. It's like each guy brings a date.
Yeah.
And so I had by this point, I had established several really good guy friends that were also my age, that were freshmen as well. And one of them really liked one of my friends because we were all starting to hang out and stuff like that. And so he had asked her to go to that. And I was like, oh, well, I really want to go, but like, because I'm friends with you guys, but no one's asking me and stuff. And so this friend said, well, don't you think Pat would ask you? And I was like, I really don't think he will. He's kind of shy because, I mean, you were coming across as very shy and not talking that. You would talk to me once when you were comfortable with when we were together, but like as far as like approaching, that normally took me doing that.
That was never my thing.
And so I said to this friend, like, yeah, like that'd be great, but Pat's not going to ask me. And he's like, oh, well, I have an idea then. And he came up with this idea to say that he was going to take me, but he decided that he wanted to take this person that he was interested in to like date.
No, that's not what it was.
Was it not?
No, I think he was like he didn't want
my friend to be by herself.
No, he called me and said, now if I remember this right, that he was supposed to take you, but then he couldn't.
Oh, but then that's right. He did do that.
He couldn't.
Even though he had already asked somebody else.
Something happened and he couldn't end up going. And so you had already planned on going. Would you want to take Maya? Yeah. That's what the scenario was.
Okay, that sounds
I'm pretty
right.
sure that's what it was. It wasn't, like there's this other person that I want to go with. It was always like, I didn't, because I remember it very specifically that I was like, wait, Nick, why are you?
No, it wasn't Nick.
It wasn't Nick.
It was Frank. No, was that his name? What was his? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. I can picture his face. It wasn't Nick though. It was another guy. He was in Nick's class. But anyways.
Okay. But anyways, I just remember it going and basically being like, oh wait, why are you here? Because he came with your friend that night, and I was like, wait, I thought you weren't supposed to come. And so then it was like, oh right.
Anyway, so that phone call was made, and then Pat calls me, and literally this is how Pat asked me out the first time, because he thought I knew everything that was going on because he could tell it was some kind of setup. And so
totally.
Pat said, hey, it's Pat. He's like, so are we going to this dance thing together or not? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Is that how you just asked me to go to the Halloween thing?
Because there were so many conversations. Everybody knew.
Pat just assumed that I knew.
You did know.
I knew, but still I thought you could at least be a little bit kinder than saying, so are we going to this dance or what? And I think you were trying to be your sarcastic self, but I definitely did not know that part of you yet.
You didn't understand that joking side of me.
So instead I came back to you and said, I will if you ask in a nicer way than that. And I think you asked me a nicer way.
I don't remember that part.
So then fast forward, our first date ended up being some weird, funny Halloween dance. And all I remember, there are several things I remember about the evening. One of them is I remember it just happened to coincide with the time frame that two of my good high school friends, guy friends, came to visit two of my other good high school friends that just happened on a fluke to be living in the same dorm as me, like several floors below us. And so when they heard, like, I just didn't date that often in high school. I had a crush on one guy the whole time. I had certain dates here and there, but like never really turned into anything. So when these two guy friends found out I was going out on a date, I swear they were out to be like, destroy. They were like, that's not true. You're not going out on a date and stuff. I remember one of them like pulled my single mattress out in the hallway to try and be funny and stuff like that. And they were just like trying to not like allow me to get ready and teasing me and stuff with that. Now I look back and that was actually really mean. But anyways, and so finally was able to leave, and I didn't let them. I remember when you came to pick me up, I was like, you are not going downstairs with me. I refuse to let you go down there. And so so we went to this party / dance / whatever it was, and we had a blast together. Like I remember walking away from that evening thinking,
I don't really remember the dance very much. I just remember
we have a picture of it. We have a picture of our first date because of
Do you remember what we dressed as?
You were the Night of the Roxbury guy from Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
And I did have a costume that then, because everyone was going to Halloween parties that night, somebody on my same floor had a dress that looked like oh gosh, what is her name in Titanic? Kate Winslet's person. There was like gloves and this like dress that looked like the dress that she wears in Titanic. And she was like, oh, you can wear it. It was like her old prom dress or something. I'm not going to wear it. I'm not going anything. And then the last minute she decided she was going to do that. So I literally, like an hour getting ready, had nothing to wear. And so somebody else had some dress that was covered in flowers and was like, just go as a flower girl. And I'm like, okay.
Like a hippie like
flower girl. And the dress was super short on me because this person was super short and I was much taller than her. So I
remember from that night that you were unhappy with how your hair turned out because it was like super curly.
A friend
and you're
also
like, the same. Normally how you do my hair.
Same friend was like, you should wear your hair really curly, and I was like, I don't really do that, and I let this person do it, and I was like, just so you know, this is not how I normally look. And I remember you being like, yeah, I know, I've been around you before, because I was so worried like he was gonna think I did that. And I was like, this was not my doing, and there was not time to undo it. I remember walking away from that night thinking, like there's a connection there. Like there's something different here. Again, I hadn't dated a lot, so I didn't have a lot to go back on. But I do remember when I came back, all 4 of my guy friends were waiting and wanted to know how it went. And I remember saying like, oh, there's just something different. And I remember them teasing me and be like, oh, are you going to get married and stuff? And I was like, no. But, you know, here we are.
20 years later.
20 years later. So, but then I remember after that, though, I don't know if it was before you asked me to dance or something. You did actually have a conversation with Kevin, didn't you? To be like, are you cool with this?
Yeah. Because again, you know, you guys had, you know, you went on a couple dates or, you know, you went to lunch a couple times and things like that. So, you know, we definitely wanted to make sure that wasn't, you know, something that could create awkwardness. You know, again, we had been best friends since 5th grade, and like, you know, Kevin and I still have a great relationship, and like it's, you know, he's actually even visited us here in London, which was so much fun to have him here.
We did have some funny moments though, like right before we got married. Well, like a year before, we were engaged for quite a while. But I remember being
that could be another story.
That's a whole nother story. But being someplace and I had my engagement ring on, and one of Pat's fraternity brothers, or one of their fraternity brothers, who I hadn't seen in years because he graduated the same, like Pat graduated 2 years before I did from university. And I remember seeing this person. He's like, oh, you're engaged? How is Kevin? And I was like, oh no, I'm not engaged to Kevin. I'm engaged to Pat. And he was like, what? I'm so confused. He was so confused because he wasn't really around to see all of that happen. Yeah. He just, the last time he saw me, he remembered me going on dates with Kevin. And so then it ended up being this huge joke. Then we told Kevin about how that happened. Yeah. And then Kevin like sent ring pops or something. I remember there was something, he sent something hilarious as a joke and all that stuff. Yeah. And then of course, like, I think there was the night before our wedding at, the rehearsal dinner, whatever, somehow a couple of Pat's friends decided they were going to do like a roasting thing. At first I thought they were giving like standing up and giving really nice, like,
it was like that.
It was like that. Everyone said really nice things.
But then
and
then it
quickly turned of like, let's joke around as well. And so Kevin was in our wedding and stood up and said, oh, you know, I dated Maya before. And then one of my good guy friends that was one of the ushers, like I don't know, when we were sophomores in high school, we dated for like 3 weeks or something like that, whatever you do at that age. And then he stood up and said, I dated Maya too. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Pat's whole family was there. And like your grandma, all that's grandparents and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm mortified right now. But they were totally doing it because they knew.
We had a large wedding party, so almost all the guys stood up and said that they.
Yeah, then they started doing it, which wasn't true. And they're like, oh, I also know the couple because I dated Maya, which none of that was true. I was like, what is going on? They just knew it would embarrass me. But anyways, so that is. And then after that, we just kept like, again, it was I was 19. Yeah, I was 19.
Yeah, you were 19.
You would just turn 21.
Just turned 21, yeah.
And so I just remember after that, we just hung out a lot. Like we...
Well, in university, like...
That's kind
of what you did.
Yeah, like, we didn't... There wasn't I feel like there might be more pressure now to like have like these formal dates and stuff. I don't even remember us really going to like a nice dinner or anything like that for a long time. It was just hanging out.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe our like most formal thing was like going to the Olive Garden.
I did introduce Pat to salad.
Something like that. Like I think,
Literally, he had never had salad before we met.
Yeah, that's true. But I think again, after that dance. Like after that dance, you're right. Like we just like hung out. We just did things.
And I don't even.
It almost kind of was like more of like us becoming even closer friends than what we were before.
Because that would be the other thing is I didn't let you kiss me for a very long time.
Yes. Well, that's true. So
I seriously would run
after that dance,
shut the door
because we didn't kiss that night at the dance. And then we were like, oh, well, maybe we should keep this going. And so we kept doing things, but you never wanted to kiss me.
No.
And so I didn't
want him to think that I just went around kissing everybody.
It was like 3 months into this, like hanging out and doing things together. Yeah. And I was like, well, I guess this is not going anywhere. And she's not interested because we haven't kissed yet. And then we finally kissed. But it was just like, to be honest, I was like, well, this is probably not going to go anywhere then. It's just going to stay in the friend zone.
So we didn't really define it either. I think that was we just took the pressure off of it. That's easier to do. I'm saying that, and I know recognizing
definitely.
The ages that we were and that we were in university, that is much easier to do than if you're at different stages of life.
I mean, again, we're going to show our age, but there was no social media at that
There was
time.
no social media. There was no dating apps. There probably was. Well, was there even a dating website by then? Probably not.
No.
Like
websites
none of
were
that
pretty
stuff was
relatively-
around. And so yeah, but then Pat jokingly, it was before we went on like a school break or something like that, left a little note for me and basically said, "Should I call you my girlfriend?" ? And there was 3 boxes.
Because I think we had maybe kissed once by that time.
We hadn't really
or a
talked
couple
about what to
times.
do. And he put like, I think you put yes, maybe. And then on the one that said no, you're like, please don't answer this. Or something like that. But then here's the funny part is he forgot to give me his phone number. So he left that note, and then you go off. And at that time his parents lived outside of Philadelphia, and I lived outside of Indianapolis. And so like we went home, and I had no way, I didn't have a way to call him. Like I only had his dorm room number, and he only had my dorm room number. So like then we went over that break, if I remember right, and you didn't know. I think and so that's just
I feel like somebody called.
somebody called eventually. I think somehow maybe I can't, something happened that we somehow got each other's phone numbers.
I do think that we communicated. I don't think we didn't communicate.
But
that
this
whole
was
break.
before. I mean, yeah, this was before. Some people had cell phones, but they were awful expensive at that time to have a cell phone. University students usually did not have a cell phone.
But I would say after that break, we came back, and then from there, I think we both kind of like knew like this is probably
again,
a forever thing.
A forever thing. That sounds so cheesy.
Well, it is cheesy, but it's true.
Yeah, I think it was pretty quickly into us, I guess, officially dating and stuff to be like, oh, this is interesting. Like, and I don't want to put like, that's why I said like forever thing. I don't want to put like fairy tale things around it because there was a lot of difficulty when we first started dating, trying to figure each other out and the way we communicated. Both of us were very immature, and things like that when it came to all of that.
There's definitely some stories we could share.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we need to do that, but
you threw the engagement ring at me one time.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, because you said something to me that you shouldn't have said, and everyone that saw me do it was like, "No, pick up the ring. You two can't break up," and stuff. So we definitely had our fair share of things, that's for sure. But it did feel like, yeah, this feels right. And it's interesting because we do a lot of stuff with like, hanging out with younger people, and sometimes they're dating somebody and they're like, I don't know, like if this is right or not. And I don't, because everybody's experience is different.
Yeah. You can't really.
And so I think for me,
you can't like equate.
No, you can't equate it to our experience. I think for me, it was like, oh yeah, I could spend my life with this person. I could see doing different seasons of life with this person. I mean, you're young, at least we were at the time, so I hadn't experienced much, but so I was making that assumption off on a whole lot of things, but yeah.
I hadn't really dated much other than like one person.
You dated one person very seriously for a long time.
For a really long time through high school and stuff. So, I mean, I didn't
and all your blind dates.
I didn't have, and all my blind dates. So, yeah, I didn't have a ton of.
Which was funny. I didn't realize how many blind dates he had until we started to be in a relationship and started dating. And we'd be like walking on campus. He was like, "Oh," somebody would say hi to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, I went on a blind date with her. It was horrible."
Whoa. So no.
Yes, that did happen.
Or we could tell some other stories too about you and be like. I mean, really, if you want to go there.
No, I was trying to say like you had like gone on blind dates and stuff, but they hadn't gone well.
No. Of course.
So anyway, so that is how we met. That is much longer than I thought it was going to be of describing how we met, but people are always very curious. We were super young. We did get married right when I was done with university. So I was 23. You were, or was I 22?
No, you were 22. I was 24.
I was 22. You were 24. That, and I say this like I'm putting this.
Oh, that really just we, everybody knows how old we are.
Old we are now. Whatever. I don't care. But I think depending where you live, I feel like there's kind of quote unquote certain standards of what age is like normal to get married at.
Culturally
normal. And so when we tell people how young we were when we got married here, they're like, whoa, that's really young and that kind of thing. But in Indiana, most of our friends got married. Not most, but a large amount of people got married fresh out of university. Whether I say that's a good thing to do or not, I don't actually have an opinion on that because there's things on both sides of the fence with that. But it definitely had its own challenges as well. Because we basically grew up together. We basically grew into an adult together. And when you do that, you change a lot. Both of you do. But then you're also in this relationship that's changing and evolving too. And so it has all kinds of, that's probably a whole nother thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, that's how it began. That's how the Rent Collective started. In many ways.
An interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first parts of that. So
yeah.
Yeah. So this is always something, because it is hilarious sometimes to hear how people met, because people have some, I mean, I don't feel like our story is that unique. But some people have some really cool stories of how they met and stuff. Yeah. So we'd love to hear your stories.
Or if you were a part of our story and you heard it differently, we would love to know what you think. Or we're a part of that in some way that you're like, no, this is how I remember it.
That's hilarious. That would be very funny. That would be hilarious. So thanks for joining us. And remember, rate and review the podcast, and then take a screenshot of it and send it to us either through our website and our email, or on Instagram, direct messages, Facebook, whatever's easiest for you. And we will pick some winners at the end of the month to get a free mug from us. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Rent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Rent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.